English. Okay. Oops. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Martin Kölling. I'm co-chairman of the Professional Activities Committee, and I'm your moderator. I'm the moderator of today. Today, for me, it's a pleasure to introduce this panel to you. Because we have German guests here. And it's a very topical event, I think, a very hot event. The Russian invasion of the Ukraine was certainly a shock here in Japan, causing the government to speed up the so far rather slow change to a more muscular and better financed defense policy. But for Germany, the war was what we call a Zeitenwende, a historic turning point that caused the German government to raise the defense budget drastically and immediately. But as our guest show today, there is more to that than just military spending. Rising tension in Asia have also prompted the German government to be a more proactive partner in enforcing the so-called rule-based international order in the Indo-Pacific. Last year, the former government already sent the frigate Bayern to Japan and the region as a message for free shipping on the oceans. It was a for message, right? Here in Asia, it was more interpreted as a message against China. Now, the German Air Force dispatched a fleet of 13 aircrafts, I think, to join Australia's biannual multinational exercises. Yesterday, a part of the fleet arrived in Japan, while one airplane, was it one airplane? Mm-hmm. Traveled to South Korea. We are lucky to have these two knowledgeable officials with us today who will tell us about the bigger meaning of this visit in light of Germany's policy guidelines for the Indo-Pacific. First, let me introduce the German ambassador, Clemens von Goetze. Botschafter von Goetze took over the current position 1 year ago. Right. Before that, he represented Germany in the European Union, Israel and China, among other important positions. And then it's my pleasure to introduce Ingo Gerhards to you, Chief of the German Air Force. He joined the Air Force in 1985 and rose through the ranks. In 2009, he was base commander of the Camp Marmel in Afghanistan. Since 2018, he serves in his current position. And yesterday, he arrived from Singapore, and actually he exchanged his desk chair with the cockpit of a Eurofighter and flew a Eurofighter from Singapore to Japan and one time around the Fuji. Okay, please give our guests a warm welcome, and then I will open the floor to short speeches. Okay, who would like to start?
Yeah, I'll introduce shortly the political chapeau. We have put our limelight on the Indo-Pacific region not only after the Russian aggression in Ukraine, but already much before. This is an important region for us in many respects, and that's why we have issued Indo-Pacific guidelines of the German government already in 2020. And the new German government has, after taking office, adopted a progress report on these guidelines and thereby made it very clear that also the new government continues that policy of a strong engagement with the region. And the Indo-Pacific guidelines, they have already a very broad view on the region, economically, politically, culturally, scientifically, but definitely also a strong focus on security policy and the Russian aggression against Ukraine has made it even clearer that we will stand for respecting international law and maintaining a rules-based international order in Europe, but also strongly in the Indo-Pacific, a region that is marked by high economic importance for us, but also by rising geostrategic importance and geostrategic rivalry, as I may say. So the sending of the Eurofighters and other airplanes of the German Air Force to the region is part of that strong focus on security policy in the region and on our strong interest in defending the rules-based international order and peace and stability in this region. I want to stress that this is an inclusive and rules-based approach. It is not directed against anybody. We want to focus on consultation instead of confrontation, but without ignoring existing differences or avoiding them. By sending, and Mr. Kölling has mentioned that, a frigate to the region, the frigate Bayern in November last year, but now also by sending aircraft into the region, we want to substantially contribute to security, the rule of law and prosperity in the region. And it goes without saying that Japan is for us an enormously important value partner in the region, and it is therefore very logic that the aircraft have not only been sent to a multilateral exercise in Australia, but also to Japan, where General Gerhartz flew in, as Mr. Kölling described yesterday himself, in the seat of a Eurofighter. Last remark from my side, we have stepped up our coordination with Japan in many fields over the last years, and in security policy also, with establishing a 2+2 format of foreign and defense ministers. And security policy has also been part of the discussions that both Chancellor Olaf Scholz had here with Prime Minister Kishida in April, and Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock with her counterpart Hayashi in July in Tokyo. With that, I would like to hand over to the General.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and our deployment to Japan with the German Air Force, it's the first time ever that we deployed with aircraft so far away from Germany, and it's following, like mentioned already by our ambassador, it's following the Indo-Pacific guidelines of the German government. Last year, our Navy frigate, the so-called Bayern, was here. That was already the first following those guidelines action, and now it was our turn of the Air Force to come here to Asia in a whole, so for an exercise in Australia, and now especially visiting Japan. And I think it was a clear and strong signal by the German Chancellor. The country who he visited first was Japan, as you all know. And now we followed with the Air Force. Like already mentioned, it is for our priority right now is to act in the crisis or in the war in Ukraine. So my Air Force right now is deployed at the eastern border of NATO. We are flying with the Eurofighter jets in the Baltics, securing NATO airspace. We deploy to Romania. I have tanker aircraft over Poland. I have a missile defense system, so-called Patriot missile defense system in Slovakia. For sure, that is right now our main focus, to make clear NATO territory. Like the German Chancellor is always mentioning, it is the red line, and we will defend it if somebody attacks it. But we wanted to show that the Air Force is so capable that we can do both. Besides securing NATO territory in Europe, we deployed to Asia. And for the first time, we deployed to Australia. That was an exercise for about 5 weeks. A lot of countries from this region were involved. Indonesia, the Philippines, India, Australia was the host, and even Japan. We were flying with them during that exercise, and we were really impressed by the professionality of the Air Force from Japan. And on the way back, we are right now on our redeployment with the overall 13 aircraft. It's 6 Eurofighter fighter jets, together with 4 A400M transport aircraft and 3 A330 tanker aircraft. So right now we are on our way back from that exercise in Australia, and we made a stop in Singapore for some days, and that gave us the opportunity to send 1 transport aircraft to South Korea, that's an A400, and 3 fighter jets, Eurofighter, here to Japan. And I know that it is a big challenge for my Air Force, for the men and women in our Air Force. It is the longest leg of deployment. It is a flight of more than 8 hours, so it is really logistical-wise quite a challenge. On our way, we had to air refuel 5 times, and I know that challenge, what it means for my people. So I wanted to do it by myself as well, to show my people, okay, I'm with them. So yesterday we deployed from Singapore to Japan, and then when we entered the airspace close to the Mount Fuji, my counterpart, the chief of the Japan Air Self-Defense Force, he came with a Japanese fighter aircraft and welcomed me in the airspace here. So that was really, I mean, we are far away from home, but when you hear your colleague in the air greeting you, you immediately feel like you are home. So I think that was a great welcome from his side. We stay here for a day. So today we had staff talks with my colleague, and tomorrow we will redeploy to Singapore, and then the whole fleet of aircraft is going back to Germany. We had some objectives. One objective was, like I mentioned already, to show that we can do both, being deployed secure NATO airspace, and on the other side, in parallel, being here in Asia. When we came to the exercise, we wanted to prove, the frigate, it take weeks and months to come here, a Navy ship. And we wanted to show air forces can be really fast, quick deployment. So from Germany, it took us the maximum of 24 hours. Actually, it took us 22 hours to be in Singapore. So that was kind of something we wanted to show, that we can be in Asia within a day. And that we can even divide our fleet into two parts, being in Singapore and now at the same time being in Japan. That is something air forces can do, so that's what we wanted to show. So that's it for the first introduction. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I open the floor to questions. Any questions? Yeah, can you please go to the microphone? We are recording this session and broadcasting online. And please introduce yourself by name and affiliation.
Yeah, I'm Seth Robson from Stars and Stripes newspaper. I'm just curious if you've had any interaction with the American forces here. I know you likely did in Australia, but how about here in Japan, or are you going to?
So in the exercise in Australia, I mean, Australia was the host mainly, and were 70 nations. Most of the nations were from this region, Asian nations. U.S. Air Force took place as well, or took part in that exercise. But that was the interaction we had. No other flights or visit of any U.S. bases. Like I mentioned already, we flew now for 3 days with the Singapore Air Force, and now a visit in Japan. And the U.S. Air Force was part of the exercise in Australia, but most of the nations being part of Pitch Black, that was the name of the exercise in Australia, were countries from Asia.
Hello, thanks very much for your very interesting talk. I'm Liz Palmer from CBS News, America. This is a political question, so perhaps you'd like to jump in as well, Mr. Ambassador. Can you tell us a little bit about Germany's relationship with the United States and its policy on taking part in exercises in a sort of a larger general show of force and commitment to a free and open Pacific? But obviously, you know, the crisis, if there is one, is going to come over Taiwan. How do you position yourself? What's the political dialogue, and how will the military be involved if and when some sort of confrontation did occur?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, the United States are our most important security partner. In NATO, we work together, as you all know, extremely closely with integrated staffs and very well established structures. So it's no doubt that within NATO we cooperate very closely with the US, and also a lot of our armaments, we receive them from the United States. In the Indo-Pacific, we want to show with this deployment both of the frigate and of the aircraft, and other deployments will follow in the future. That has been made clear, that the security situation in the region is relevant to us, that we care about it, that peace and stability in the region are of utmost importance, not only for classical Pacific powers as the United States are, but also for a European country like Germany. That means that we have already very close and well established since many years political consultations on the situation in the region with the United States, both between Berlin and Washington, but also I can assure you, having been posted before Japan in China and now here, we have extremely close relations between our embassies. We share our analysis, we consult each other. So politically and in security policy, we are in a very strong contact with the United States, and I think we know very well how we judge the situation in the region here from both sides. As regards the deployment, this is, as the General has already said, this is something which we are doing on a multilateral basis in Australia, with United States being a big participant, a big force that was there, but that was not in a bilateral German-American context, nor was it in a NATO context. And also here the visits in Japan are bilateral visits. So there is no strong military coordination from that side, but that does not say that we are not in a close political contact and that we very much share our analysis on the situation in the region.
George?
Hello, my name is Baumgartner. I'm working for Swiss television. Since you are in the region today, in case of an attack by China against Taiwan, will you provide military support or logistic support to the Americans and the other allies who would help Taiwan? And I have another question regarding Ukraine. Why are you so slow in providing the tanks, the weapons Ukraine is asking Germany to send them? And another question is, do you want General Ukraine to win the war, or just not to be defeated by Mr. Putin? And okay, thank you.
Yeah, first of all, you know, on my way now to Asia, I often got the question, and I think you are asking in that direction as well, is our deployment to this region, is it a signal against China? No, it is not. It is not a signal against anybody. It is a signal in favor of our partners here, of our partners who share the same values with us. And we did not provoke anybody. We flew here without weapons. We were on international air routes. And the other question you were asking is kind of like, is there a military option behind it? I don't see any military option in that perspective. I think you were talking about China and Taiwan. There can be only a diplomatic or political solution to that. And to the Ukraine, in terms of delivering weapons, I think Germany does a lot. I don't know the exact number, but if we are number 3 or number 4, but I know we are one of the countries which are really giving a lot of weapons to the Ukraine, which we see already the effect that they use it. Talking from an Air Force perspective, a really capable missile defense system. It's called the IRIS-T missile defense system. My Air Force people trained Ukraine soldiers on that, and that's something they can defeat their country with. I don't know if you want to add something, Ambassador?
Yeah, maybe on Taiwan. I mean, our Taiwan policy is very stable and very constant for quite a number of years already, and that continues to be the case. I mean, we have always said we stand by the one China principle, but any solution, as the General has already stated, of the Taiwan question can only be peaceful. So we strongly oppose to any violent solution, and that's the core here. We stand in for peaceful solutions and for international law. And as regards the Taiwan Strait, for us, it's very clear this is an international water according to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas. So everybody is entitled legally to use it as an international seaway. So we stand in here for defending the well-established international order in all its aspects, and we stand in for, or stand in against the use of force, military force, to change the situation in the region. But we have also, as all other, almost all other our partners, we also continue to follow the One China principle.
Are there other questions? Please.
Hi, my name is Mayo Izuka from Nippon Television. Thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask about your energy crisis in Germany. So it's going to be a question to Mr. Ambassador, maybe. You are supporting Ukraine, and EU just proposed a new sanction to Russia. But at the same time, you are suffering with an energy crisis because of the gas not sending from Russia. So how will you balance, or how do you think Germany would survive this winter with this situation?
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, the energy situation in Germany is not easy. We received a very big part of our gas supplies until the beginning of this year from Russia via pipelines. In fact, the gas supplies have almost stopped. And now with the explosions of the pipelines through the Baltic Sea, it's even technically very difficult to see how we could receive the same amount as before. But we have been very clear. We are looking for alternative supplies. We are strongly working on that. And we are not willing in any way to compromise on our political situation as regards the Russian aggression against Ukraine in any way for the sake of our gas supplies. So what have we done? The federal government is providing for LNG capacities, additional LNG capacities, where we don't have strong infrastructure yet, but we are about to build it so that we can receive LNG supplies in higher quantities than we can do it up to now. We are continuing to work on expanding renewable energies, in particular wind energy, and we have temporarily decided to continue the use of coal power plants, and there is a discussion now ongoing on the continued use of at least 2 of the 3 nuclear power plants over the end of the year. But I want to stress very clearly here, these are intermediate measures. There is no change in our overall energy policy and in our climate policy. So we continue to strive for being CO2 neutral much earlier than many others in the international community, and we continue to strive to be to phase out coal in 2030. So this is now a question of a temporary bridging of energy. We have been able to fill the gas storage at around 90% now. So we are not in a desperate situation, but it is for sure not easy. And as you all follow, gas prices are going up worldwide, and also in Europe and in Germany. And the cabinet is actually discussing measures to help both private households and business to cope with these very high energy prices.
Elizabeth?
I just realized there was a mic on this side of the room. Would you care to comment on the sabotage of the gas pipelines? Military, German intelligence, what's your assessment? Who did it and why?
Yeah, it seems to be sabotage. I mean, that's all indications go in that direction. But I have no further comments to make at this stage. That's up to the authorities in Berlin to assemble the information necessary and then to give comments on that.
Okay, then I also have 3 short questions. First, I'm a layman. I didn't join the military. So what's actually the value of such exercises? The one in Australia, and also the exercises you did here in Japan. what are the lessons learned for future deployments, and what are your future plans, not only for the Air Force, but also for the other parts of the German military?
Okay, yeah, thanks. I think the value of the exercise, especially for the Air Force, was the distance we covered. Because that's a big logistical challenge for the material and for human resources. So we had a lot of lessons learned from that. And especially the exercise in Australia, I mean, 17 nations. Normally we have exercises with NATO nations, and it's kind of a routine. We all have the same procedures. We all do our tactical flying in the same manner. And here, being in a totally different region, you can learn a lot from other countries, because they do things differently. And especially, like I told already in my initial statement, from the Air Force here in Japan, we can learn a lot due to the fact that they have different procedures. But as well, for example, the F-35, that is one of, or this, I would say, the most modern fighter aircraft in the world. German government decided to procure that system. And here in Japan, they fly that system already since a couple of years. So they have already quite an experience in it, especially the lessons learned when you introduce such a complex system. So that was something we were talking about today when I had my staff talks with my colleague. And I asked him, what is the biggest challenge introducing that system in the Air Force? So we can really learn a lot from that. And the plans, we will exchange our experience on different topics. For example, I mentioned already the F-35. Another field would be space awareness. That's something which is really important for everybody. We have to know what is happening there. I mean, this conference couldn't take place if our assets in space are not working, are not operating. So the Japanese armed forces, they came up with a space command quite recently. Same Germany did. So we will have an exchange of personnel, so we can see how we can learn from each other on that topic. And talking about future plans, the German government stated already that German army is coming to an exercise to Australia. It's called Talisman Sabre in 2023. And the Navy will come back in this region in 2024. It is not fixed yet for the Air Force, but we would like to come back, especially to the exercise in Australia in 2024. But we will have to see. It's quite a logistic footprint. But I would say in 2024, the latest in 2025, the German Air Force will be back.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I have another one. In Australia, I think India also took part, but with Russian airplanes. How common is it that you do exercises, military exercises, together with partners with Russian airplanes, actually?
Yeah, that is unique. Correct. They came with this Russian designed aircraft. So that was sure from a military perspective. That's then interesting to see the capabilities. And in Germany we had a special situation after reunification of the country. We took some of the Russian-built aircraft from the former Eastern Armed Forces, or from the former Eastern Air Force. That was the MiG-29 in those times. That is always a good experience to see, okay, what are the capabilities and what can we develop any tactics against it. So it was worthwhile that India participated in the exercise in Australia.
Regarding another one, regarding future plans, you mentioned already that you are planning personal exchange in the area of Space Force. What about a reciprocal visit of Japan to Europe and or Germany?
In terms of exchanging people, I think, and they came already to Germany, but it's fully open. It's a long way for an air force to come in that region. So on the other side, vice versa. Right now it is nothing detailed or concrete on the table for those plans, but we will see for the future. Who knows?
Thanks, on.
I'm T.W. Kong, professional associate member of the club. I'm Korean, and I understand from what you just said that you sent aircraft to South Korea. Now, my question is about the North Korean threat. Taiwan is a big issue, but so is North Korea. They just lobbed a missile across into the Sea of Japan. You know, you have a situation where there are a nuclear threat, but also they seem to be engaged in the direction of Ukraine as well with the Russians. And so this Eurasia geopolitics is becoming quite complex now with an actor like North Korea. As a former divided country, and we are still a divided country, do you have any insights into how you deal with an actor like North Korea? And not only advice, but also how you would cooperate with different powers in the region to deal with North Korea. I would appreciate a perspective from the diplomatic angle and from the military angle, because I think this is really a very important strategic and economic issue. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I start. In fact, North Korea's actions are unacceptable. North Korea is continuously violating resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, and that's why we are continuing to control that the sanctions imposed on North Korea are actually implemented. And when the frigate Bayern was here, end of last year, it participated in an operation that controls whether the sanctions regime is kept or is, so the frigate Bayern has been in waters around North Korea and exactly doing that controlled work. So we contributed to see that the implementation is as watertight as it can be. And yes, we have very close relations also with South Korea. Also in the past, we have shared our experiences with unification, knowing that the situation in Korea is very, very different. But nevertheless, whatever Korea might find helpful, the Republic of Korea might find helpful to draw from our experiences, we are most willing to share that, and we have done that in the past. And many Korean delegations have inquired about our experiences in that respect. But definitely, for many reasons, the situation is not easily comparable between the two sides, and East Germany having been a part of a Soviet-controlled military bloc, it's a different situation from North Korea. From our point of view, the decisive question is now to prevent North Korea from developing its nuclear arsenal further. We know that they try everything to do so, and we have to see that we take every measure possible to prevent North Korea from developing that path further. And we are very much in contact on that with our partners here in the region. We know also that Japan has a particular problem with North Korea, and these are the abductees. Also, that is a humanitarian, very, very big problem. So we are in contact with our partners here in the region, with the Republic of Korea, with Japan, but also with the United States on that question, and contribute in whatever we can to in the way that I described.
Yeah, and if you ask for a military perspective, it's almost like I mentioned already before on the question of China and Taiwan. It's like the ambassador mentioned, we have to look for political solutions, and I think it's not my turn here as a European military leader to talk about military options in this region. But you asked how I've seen what we had in Europe was the Warsaw Pact, and on the one side, and the NATO on the other side. And I think at the end it was really important to show the Warsaw Pact that we are an alliance and we have strong partners.
Okay, now we come to some online questions. You don't want to talk about the military option, but Jack Lau of the South China Morning Post would like you to. He asks you, I know you said there is no military option for Taiwan, but if Taiwan does attack, if Beijing does attack Taiwan, will Germany join in military efforts, such as those from the US, to defend Taiwan?
First of all, I would say it's a political question, but I can answer already. I don't see any military option here at all. This has to be it has to be a political and diplomatic solution. So that's all I can say to that.
Okay, here another question from our online viewers. Ilgin Yolumas, BBC World Turkish, asks, does Germany see potential in building tighter defense ties with Turkish forces, which is the second largest army in NATO, in and outside Europe, and even acquiring Turkish drones which are popular in the Ukrainian war?
From a military perspective, it's clear. Turkey is part of NATO. It's a really important partner of NATO. Every 3 months, all the NATO air chiefs meet in person and online, and the Turkish air chief is part of our alliance, and I don't see any change to that.
Mm-hmm. And drones? What about drones?
Drones, I cannot comment what Turkish government is doing in terms of delivering.
No, but whether Germany wants to acquire.
Okay. That's the point. Yeah, Germany right now has the drones under contract from Israel. We use them in Afghanistan. They are quite useful, give you a good of situational awareness, and it's for protecting soldiers on the ground. It was a big discussion in Germany in terms of weaponizing drones. The government we have now since last year now opted for it, so we will have weaponized drones as well, which is really important for me, so we better can protect our ground forces, and that's all drones from Israel. And then we have a project with some European nations. It's called the Eurodrone. I think it's a really capable system we are developing right now. And there are no talks about buying a Turkish drone.
Okay. I don't think we have to stretch it out if there are no questions. Does anybody still have questions?
Thanks.
No? Okay, then I would like to end today's press conference. Thank you very much for joining us and answering our questions. So, and it is common. 1 year honorary membership, so you have to come back
Okay.
Next year, I don't know what we have for you, because you are basically a member ambassador. So, but I have an envelope for you. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.